know me. My name is Neil, and I'm a practitioner and a ministerial student extraordinaire, or as Corliss likes to call me, the almost Reverend Neil, even though I'm still like a year away. It seems like it's going on forever, but it's been a good thing. So I'm here to talk to you about our CSL, Center for Spiritual Living yearly theme, which has been Living Everyday Wonder, talking about how our spiritual life intersects with our daily life. And so our monthly theme is the idea of home. And I'm here to talk to you today about roots and wings, not the kind that you eat. Roots and wings. And it comes from this saying, there are two lasting things we can give our children. One is roots, and the other is wings. And I think the same is true also for our spiritual lives. There's two things that our spiritual philosophy or our spiritual teaching, no matter what that is, should give us. It should give us roots, and it should give us wings. And when I heard the title for this talk, I immediately thought of a quote from one of my favorite shows, which is Blue Bloods. Any Blue Bloods fans out there? And one of the things that Frank, the police commissioner in the show, he has this line. He says, "Life should be a series of adventures launched from a secure base." Life should be a series of adventures launched from a secure base. So we have this idea of home, of roots, and of a secure base. And I always think of the idea of home as being that place where you go when you're having a bad day. When the world has shaken you to its core, or your core. When the world has shaken us to our roots. We return to a place of safety, to a place of belonging. I think that's true on a physical level. I think it's also true on a spiritual level. You see, roots represent our belonging, where we belong. And wings represent our freedom. And we need both of those things. We need both roots and wings, just like kids do. Now, our teaching, which we call Center for Spiritual Living, or religious science, or science of mind, we have both of those things. We have the freedom to approach the idea of our spiritual living at the level of our own understanding. We have freedom to apply the spiritual principles and practices that we teach in whichever way is going to bring us the most joy and the most peace and the wholeness and joy. And newsflash, we don't all have to believe the same things in the same way. And that's okay. But where do we go when our world is shaken? When things are looking like they're falling apart? What are the roots that we return to? It's always interesting to me that even people who have been in this teaching for decades, when life goes topsy-turvy, as it does on occasion, we sometimes still fall back on those belief systems that we used to have, or belief systems that we grew up with. It's still lurking back there. We may have cut down the growth or the tree, but the roots are still there. And when our world gets shaken, we have a tendency to go back to the familiar. We haven't really replaced those old ways of thinking. And how do you know that you haven't replaced them yet? Because when life goes topsy-turvy, that's the first place you go to. You return to your roots. You return to what's familiar. Ernest Holmes wrote that to desert the truth in our hour of need is to prove that we do not know the truth. So what are the roots that you return to? What's the secure base of faith the secure base of faith, the spiritual home and truth from which you launch your adventures from? What is your secure base? I'm going to talk to you today about a couple of mine. In his book, A New Design for Living, Ernest Holmes writes this, and I just really loved this quote this weekend. He says, "The most important thing in life is to learn to be at home in the universe, to not be afraid of it, to live and think and act as though it were not a hostile force, but a friendly presence forever embracing us. This is the beginning of right thinking, the beginning of all wisdom, the starting point of everything that is worthwhile. The most important thing is to learn to be at home in the universe." Now, many people, most people, grow up in safe and loving homes. So you have a good mental equivalent, a good idea of what that seems like. But if you're like me, maybe your home was not always the safest place. So this was an idea that I had to really look at as I stepped into this teaching of recognizing that the universe is a fundamentally good place. It is a fundamentally safe place. There's almost like two orientations towards life. You wake up in the morning and either the universe is an unsafe place that you have to survive, or the universe is here for your good, and the universe is here to support you. Which one of those viewpoints do you have when you wake up in the morning? If you look at the theme of home this month, the first question we should ask ourselves is, do I feel at home in the universe? If you want to, Ernest Holmes said, if you want to get rid of fear, you need to take the time to consider. You do not need to take the time to consider each separate fear you may have. The fear of people, the fear of things, the fear of conditions, the fear of yesterday, today, and tomorrow. For all of these varying forms of fear are rooted in one fundamental negation. We do not know that we belong to the universe in which we live. We do not realize that spirit needs us, or it would not have put us here. Spirit needs you to be right where you are, otherwise you wouldn't be here. You belong to the universe in which you live. You belong here. The universe is your home, and it is here to support you, to inspire your growth. We embody the idea that the universe is for us and not against us. When we embody that, then we get the wings to fly. If we know that the universe is fundamentally a safe place, a good place, then the second root of our belief can be, in the words of Emma Curtis Hopkins, there is good in the universe and you ought to have it. Not only is the universe a good place, but there is good in the universe and you ought to have it. There is enough good for everyone, and everyone ought to have their good. Don't you love Emma Curtis Hopkins? There is enough good for everyone, and everyone ought to have it. Ernest agrees because he says, we must not only know there is good enough to go around, but we must specifically announce this good. There is enough good. Life is not a zero-sum game, meaning that every bit of good that I claim does not mean that there's less for you. Every bit of good that I claim doesn't mean that there's less for somebody else. As much as we are willing and able to claim and embody, that is as much as there is. As much as we are willing and able to claim and embody. Now, if you grew up with brothers and sisters like I did, there always seems to be a bit of competition, right? Over the TV, over the food at the dinner table, over your parents' attention, or of course, the front seat of the car. And sometimes we carry that idea into life with us. But the truth is, as I tell my fourth graders, the only person you are competing against is you. The only person you are competing against is you. Am I open to have more good today than I did yesterday? Am I willing to have more good today than I had yesterday? You see, we have direct, unmediated access to the source of all good. And the wonderful thing is that my good is not necessarily your good. We all are diverse and wonderful and magnificent beings, and we all want our good to come in different shapes and sizes and colors. So the thing is, we're not really in competition, because each of us is given unique desires, unique talents, unique skills. We all want different things, so there is no competition. But this also means that you don't have to earn your good. That doesn't mean you don't have to work for it on occasion. But what I mean is that we don't have to do anything to deserve it. We are receiving our divine inheritance. We are already worthy of all the good. We're already worthy. You are worthy of all the good in your life. Do you believe me? Yes. You are worthy of all the good that will be coming into your life by simply being you, a divine child, an expression of the divine. And the only person who can withhold that good from you is yourself. You deserve it all. It doesn't matter where you come from, or what you look like, or who you love, or what mistakes that you think you have made in life. You are the good, and the good is there for you. In her book, Braving the Wilderness, Brené Brown writes that belonging is the innate human desire to be part of something larger than us. Because this yearning is so primal, we often try to acquire it by fitting in and by seeking approval. But here's the good news. You are pre-approved for good. You are free to be your authentic self and know that you are seen, you are loved, and you are accepted just the way that you are. Birds don't compete with us, don't compete with the winds. They don't compete with each other for the wind to fly. It's about using the wind skillfully and fully as much as they can. So my second question for you today is, what good am I withholding from myself? How am I limiting the good that comes into my life? So the first root is, I belong in this universe. Second root is, there is good in the universe and we ought to have it. The third root is recognizing that if I belong in this universe, that I am meant to be here, and that there is this good in the universe that I ought to have, that I get to know that everything that happens in my life is for my good. Everything that happens is for my good. I was in class this weekend with one of the wisest and most knowledgeable teachers of our movement, who's Dr. Jesse Jennings. If you read the Science of Mind magazine, you're familiar with his work. And he said something in a new way that I'd heard before, that I heard a different way this weekend. And he said, the root of our belief is that we believe in the primacy of the unseen. Okay, what does that mean? It means that we're metaphysicians. Meta means alongside or behind. We believe that everything seen, every condition of our life, behind that is something that is first cause, that is unseen. Everything that we see on the physical plane has behind it a perfect intelligence. Or in the vocabulary of Ernest Holmes, it is the mind of God. Everything you see, everything that is physical on this plane has an intelligence, has a good, has a love behind it. And since God is good, and God is in and through and as everything and every condition, no matter what the event, no matter what the appearance, no matter what the condition, it's all good. You can't screw it up. You can't break it. You can't make it mad. And you can't do anything to get kicked out. I'll have to tell you, when I wrote that this morning, it pushed a little button in me. Because the truth is, we can't ever leave home except in our own imaginations. Our home, our good, is always with us, in us, and around us. And everything that happens in our lives, whether we choose to call it good or otherwise, is there to remind us that we are rooted in the divine and we have wings to fly. I believe that we are at home in the universe, that the universe is a place of good and that we ought to have it and we ought to experience it. And that everything that happens in our lives serves to bring us home to the idea that we live, move, and have our being in God. And God is good all the time. Life should be a series of adventures launched from a secure base. And it doesn't get much more secure than that. Won't you join me in the adventure? And so it is. And so, having heard those words of inspiration, we simply enter into that atmosphere of God, that atmosphere of good. Where we recognize that there is only one power, one presence, one principle that is behind, in and through, and as everything. I choose to call it God because it is the biggest word I know. It is spirit. It is love. It is wisdom. It is infinite intelligence, infinite grace. It is perfect harmony, divine right action, divine right order. And it is that in which I know is real, that which I know is behind everything seen and unseen, known and unknown. It is living, moving, and having its being as everything in creation, including me. I am a product of that divine love, that divine wisdom, and so are you. There is nothing you can do to take away that divine inheritance. That divine idea of perfection that is behind everything, seen and unseen, known and unknown. God and I are one. God and you are one. You are living, moving, and having your being from a place of peace and grace and love and harmony and divine right order. It is all good. It is all awaiting your recognition of it. And so in this moment, we claim it, we name it, we recognize it, and we declare it to be. And so this morning, from that place of knowing I speak my word for and about every single person within the sound of my voice, knowing that God or spirit or love or perfect intelligence, whatever name that you are giving it this morning, is right where you are. It is the divine motivation behind every action, every reaction, every cell of your body. And wherever there is a need or a perception of lack, I know that that is filled to overflowing this morning. I know wherever there is a perception of unworthiness or blame or shame, it is simply replaced by an overwhelming sense of love, of presence, and of peace. And I know that wherever this morning that it feels like there is less than wholeness, I know that that wholeness is already there, already making itself known, already showing up in every muscle, every cell, every reaction, and every action of our body. There is wholeness, there is peace, there is good, and we claim it this morning just as much as we are able to embody and accept. I give thanks for this truth, for this knowing, and for this spiritual community where I can know this about myself and about the world. I give thanks for all of the good in my life. I praise it, I raise it, and I give it away because it is limitless. And I release this word into the law, knowing that that law always says yes. And because I know that I am loved, I know that I am heard. And I release this word into that law, knowing that it is coming back to me perfectly fulfilled. I release it and I let it go. And so it is.